99 out of 100 people spend more time planning their vacation and their wedding than they do planning the rest of their life. That's pretty scary. Only 1% of us take the time to write down our dreams, to write down our goals, and to plan where we want to be in the future. Amazing, isn't it? You know, in sort of late adolescence, moving into adulthood, I guess is more or less the time we start thinking a little bit about the future. You know, late teens, early 20s, varsity sort of years. You know, we start thinking about where we want to be, what we want to become, who we want to be with. Do we want kids? Do we not want kids? What does it look like? What career do we want? You know, what wealth do we want? Where do we want to travel? Where do we want to go? And we have all these big dreams that are in our heads. And as time marches on, sometimes the world beats those out of us. But hopefully not. Hopefully today, what I'm going to talk about is going to get you back to some of those dreams and to get you to think about new dreams that you have for yourself, new things that you want to achieve for you, your family, your significant others. Welcome to the Weekly Win. And if you haven't worked it out yet, today I want to be talking about dreams and goals and how to execute on them. This is actually a follow-on session from a talk I did at our Sun City convention in February 23. And I hope that some of what I have to share with you today will, one, resonate with you, and that some of you will take this to heart and actually implement it and use it to take your, not just your career, but your life to a new level. I know it did do that for me. So we have dreams, right? And that's where it has to start, I guess. We have to have this big picture vision for ourselves and what we want. And generally, we want to impact and improve our lives. Our lives, our significant others, our family, and those around us. That's generally what we want. But what we want to do in today's session is get more specific with that. Like, how do we actually do that? How do we move towards this beautiful picture of what we're trying to be or achieve or have? Well, it starts with goals. Now, don't switch off, because most times people start talking about goals like, oh, here we go again. It's all about goals. I've done this before. Well, maybe you've done it before, but today I want to put a different spin on it. So bear with me for just a few more moments, because, like I said, only 1% of you are actually going to do what I'm talking about today. But for that 1%, it's going to make a massive difference. So I guess we'll start with why. You know, why set goals? Well, the way to explain that is to talk about the benefit of goals for just a moment. And the first of those is they allow you to dream. They give you permission to dream about what it is you want to achieve, where you're going, what things you want for yourself, what you want to be. Dreams are fantastic. You need to always be thinking, ahead, thinking about where you want to be. Two, they cause you to stretch, just like an elastic band. Dreams cause you to, and goals specifically actually, cause you to stretch and I guess set some limits that are set some goals that are just on the outer limits of what you can achieve. That's how we stretch ourselves. We don't want to sit in our security blanket and comfort blanket for the rest of our life, because otherwise we never grow. Goals help us to grow and stretch, and because we're going after something we don't currently have. And that's in whatever realm you might find, whether it's your personal life, family, business, etc. We'll talk to that in just a moment. So goals help you and cause you to stretch and grow. They bring focus to your day, to your week, to your month. There's a whirlwind going on around us all the time. There's always stuff going on, and clients and people and complaints and issues and queries and bills and we can become overwhelming, and there's a lot that we still have to do. We have to execute on those. There's stuff that we have to do in that whirlwind. But what goals do is they narrow the focus to say, what are the things, regardless of the whirlwind that I know I have to do as well, but what are the things I have to do first in order to achieve my goals, short, medium, long term? What are the actions and activities that I'm going to have to do to, to execute on those and to achieve what I want. Which leads me to the next point, is that it brings clarity to decision making, sort of the same thing, right? It helps us to say yes to certain things and no to other things. It helps us to determine which are the more important as opposed to the urgent things to focus on. Notwithstanding that the whirlwind is happening, we need to focus on what are the things that are going to move me towards my dream, towards my specific goals that I've set for myself. And lastly, and I'm sure there's a lot more benefits to goals than this, but for the points that I have here, lastly, they foster a greater sense of life purpose. And that might sound airy-fairy, but what that means is that if you have goals, very specific goals, very intentional goals, that life then stops dragging you forward or back even, and you start taking life by the scruff of its neck and start moving forward. You start making good decisions. You start spending your time, which is extremely valuable, more efficiently and effectively. And you start putting in the effort for these activities and actions that move you a little bit nearer and a little bit nearer to each of these goals, which ultimately help to fulfill the big picture, right? The big dream that we had for ourselves years ago, or the dream that we have for ourselves right now. So what are the three types of goals? Well, you'll notice that this talk is inspired by Buffini and Company. It's in the bottom of the screen. And Vicky and I were at a session in San Diego towards late 2022, and having spoken to Brian Buffini, that owns the company, is the chairman of the company, he said to me, use the tools available, use the slides, use the slide deck and share it with your people. So I'm doing exactly that. And the three goals he spoke of were, firstly, 5 circle goals. We'll go into detail on each of these. The first one, 5 circle goals. 2, 10-day and 10-month goals. 10-day, 10-month goals. And thirdly, which is one you probably all know, bucket list goals. Big ticket items, the big picture items. So we're going to break these down and we're going to set goals in each of these different areas. So let's start with 5 circle goals. 5 circles, because at the moment there are 5 circles on the screen. It's not rocket science. But it's 5 different areas of our life, and sometimes we actually need to write this down, because what often happens is we tend to spend a lot more energy and time in one area of our life at the neglect of another. But what we want for you, what I want for you, and hopefully what you want for yourself as well, is to fill the so-called bucket, or in this case, circle, of each of these 5 different areas. From family to spiritual, to personal, to business, to financial. Each of these different areas, you actually need to be intentional about. Each of these different areas, you need to set goals for yourself. Why? Well, because it brings focus, because it narrows the focus, it helps you to make better decisions, and it's going to move you towards the things that you want. Also, we want it to be a little bit more in balance. It doesn't help we're spending hours and hours of time at the office grinding away and forgetting to go on a date night with our wife, or to go and watch our kids' sports matches. It doesn't help we grind and grind and grind to make all this money, which, you know, we need money to live, clearly, and we need wealth, but we spend all this time on just making money, and then we forget to work on self, on our health, on our fitness, on our mental well-being, on hobbies. We want in each of these different areas for you to fill those circles. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. But hopefully, what I'm going to share with you today will help you to move closer and closer and closer. So what we're going to talk about is setting goals in each of these different areas. Not just business, not just finance, not just work, in each of these different areas. And what you'll find is a greater sense of life purpose, as we spoke earlier. So my question to you is, are you circle fit? Are you circle fit? What does it mean? Well, sort of what I spoke about. You know, each of these different areas of your life, how good are they at the moment, right? If you had to rate it on 1 to 10, and maybe we should do that exercise, because if you have any sort of movement in one of these different circles, you move one step forward in any of these different circles, it will propel the entire wheel. How do you do that? Well, it's easy, right? You can hit pause now if you need to go and get a pen and paper, or you can do it on your phone. You don't have to draw the whole circle, you can just write the words. But what I want you to do is to do this phytometer. Rate yourself in each of these different areas on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay? Don't overthink it. Yeah, you'll have a good feel for what it is. It's not scientific, it's not mathematical per se. It's just a feel for where you are. So on a personal level, if you think, oh, you could put a bit more work in, and you could exercise a bit more, and you're neglecting yourself in terms of hobbies and things that you did, maybe golf or tennis or whatever, I don't know. For each of you it's completely different. Then maybe you wouldn't score yourself 9. If you think there's a complete neglect in an area of your life, well, then it's going to be closer to 1. Okay, so take the time to do that now. It's very important that you fill this in, because how do you know where you're going if you don't know your departure point, if you don't know where you're starting? So, very quickly, don't think too much about it. Write a number between 1 and 10, or from 1 to 10 in each of these different areas. Okay, I'm going to assume you've done that. If you haven't, you can hit pause and just press play. Then, what I want you to do is to multiply those numbers by each other. In my case here, take the 5. This is hypothetical, okay, these numbers for me. But take the 5 times the 6 times 6 times 7 times 6. And in my case, I get a number, 7,560. There's a reason I multiplied these numbers out. It's because all of them are interconnected. The spiritual life affects your family. Happening in your family life affects business. What's happening in business affects financial, and so on. And each of these is intertwined and interconnected. That's why the circles are all connected. So do that. You got a calculator on your phone, right? Times them out. Get a number. If you need to pause, hit pause and hit play afterwards. But then, after you've done that, just imagine if you could just tweak slightly, just by 1 point or 1 mark, each of these different circles. We don't need quantum leaps or quantum changes. The quantum leap comes. You know how the quantum leap comes? It comes from micro changes. 1 change in your personal life, like maybe you're going to walk a little bit more, 20, 30 minutes a day. Spiritual, maybe you're going to spend a little bit more time in prayer or meditating or whatever it is that gets you going from a spiritual point of view. In business, depending on what business you're in, I talk mostly to real estate people. Maybe you're going to put just a little bit more effort into your clients and like extra 1 or 2 calls a day. That's it. But if you could improve these areas of your life by just 1 little point, then I want you to go and do the math on your own. Add 1, just 1, to each of these circles, and then multiply those new numbers by each other. And what you'll find that there is more than 100% swing positively in your life. Do you think you could do that? Do you think you could make just a micro change with these massive things? Yes, we have these goals and vision and dreams, etc. But if you could just make a micro change in each one of these areas, it will have a quantum leap difference in your life. Let's see how this unfolds. So how do you do that? How do you actually start setting goals? Because that can be confusing. Now there's a lot of words on the screen. I don't normally put as many words on the screen, but for the purpose of this, I've done it, and you can again take a screenshot and pause or write this down. But you need to start. I recommend that you start with writing a 100 item wish list. Just a wish list. Be creative. Don't limit yourself. Don't think, oh, but that's foolish. Write 100 things down and start the sentence with I wish. I wish I had. I wish I had. I wish I could. I wish I did. 100 items. And here's the kicker. The word how is not your friend. Because I know what's going to happen. You're going to think, okay, I'm into this, I'm going to do it, I've committed, I'm going to write this down, and you start writing the first thing, you go, well, how am I ever going to do that? How is that even possible? From the place that I am right now, how on earth am I going to achieve that in my business? Or get there, repair that relationship from a family point of view? Or how am I going to get back to fitness? How? The problem is, when you ask yourself the question how, before you've written down what it is that you really want, it's a non-starter. Your brain starts to tell you that it's impossible. So I want you to take that little word how and throw it away for this exercise. No limits. There's no stupid wish list. There's only 100 items that you write down as they come into your head on a piece of paper, and write it down. Even those that struggle with writing, write it down, because the pen to paper to memory just seems to amplify in terms of creativity and memory. Okay, so write down 100 things. Then categorize them. You've got them all down now. Read through them and go, well, which one of these would fit in? Which one of these is more business related? Which is personal? Which is spiritual? Which is financial? Which is etc. etc. Those 5 circles. You just write the little word next to it, or abbreviation of the word next to it. But you categorize each of them, and then sort them. I suppose if you want to do an Excel, maybe that's a little bit easier afterwards, because you can sort easier, but categorize them so you can see where your thinking has been, or where your focus has been, or maybe where it should be. Then once you've done all that, then you're going to rewrite the goals again. Except this time you're going to start the sentence with, I want. I want, ... I want, ... I want, ... And you may have to revisit the wish list a few times. And don't revisit it because you ask yourself the question, how though? But then you rewrite, I want, and I need you to be descriptive. Fill the want item in with color, okay? Be descriptive about it. I'll give you an example of that in just a sec. And then next is set an achieved date. A date that you're going to achieve this by. And be specific with a date. Not 2024 or 2027. The 30th of June 2025. The 15th of December, just because it's before the public holiday, of 2028, or etc. Each of these you need to put an achieved date in, a completion date by, because then things start aligning with where the focus needs to be, right? And you may need to revisit that a couple of times before you cement that in, but make sure that you're descriptive and you put an achieved date in. And then I want you to write it in past tense. Now this is getting a little weird, right? Maybe one of your goals was you wanted a BMW X3 or BMW X5. Well, it's not good enough to just say you want a BMW X3 or X5. What color is it? What does it look like on the inside? What does it smell like? How does it drive? How does it sound? By when? You need to get specific with your description. The one I've given you is very simple on the screen. You can go into a lot more detail. Things like, I'm driving my brand new metallic blue BMW X3 down the N1, and inside it just smells like new car. I can hear the engine revving, etc., etc. Do you hear how when I start talking about the car and the sound and the smell and the color and what's around me, I've given you context and I've given you a picture. And when you have a picture, it's a lot easier aiming for a picture than it is aiming for words on a screen. So be descriptive with it and have that completion date. Then make sure in these 100 things, and you can do more if you want, but make sure that you have some short, some medium, and some longer range goals, right? We want things we can achieve in a short amount of time, because we need to get the motivation going. Some stuff that's more slightly longer range, and then your longer range goals, more like the bucket list type of stuff that we will talk about in a sec. then have a look at all of that, right? And go, how balanced am I in terms of my circles? Is my whole wish list or want list sitting in financial? Is my whole wish list and want list sitting in personal? Or is it spread out a little bit more? So have a look at that, because you're going to want to revisit your circles. You're going to want to revisit, and you might have to make a couple of adjustments along the way, because I need you and you need you to revisit and read those goals weekly. Now I'll tell you this, if you just write them down on a piece of paper and you put it in a drawer next to your bed, I'll argue that 40% of you that went through this whole exercise, 40% of you will achieve most of the goals on that piece of paper. But what I'll say is that for those that read those goals weekly, that 40% jumps up significantly to 60 to 70% of you that will achieve those goals. And I can say that because some of that happened to me. So revisit and read your goals weekly, if not daily. If it's that important to you, if these goals feed into the big dream, surely that is one of the most important things on your to-do list. Then you need to be focused on those items and remind yourself. And if you've written them in that descriptive way, it'll be like reading pictures as opposed to reading text. So place the emphasis, once you've done that, try and place the emphasis on your worst circle. Okay? Why? Well, because we want to have your life in balance. We want to get every area of your life up, and you hopefully want to get every area of your life on a more even keel. But also because, to be quite honest, it's easier to go from 1 to 2 or from 2 to 3 than it is to go from 7 to 8 or from 8 to 9. And if we can get a couple of small wins under the belt early, simple things under the belt early, it helps from a motivation perspective. It helps you start inspiring yourself to the next and the next and the next and the next. So place the emphasis on the worst circle where you have the lowest score, and that's exactly that. That's where you want your focus to be. And then measure your progress. You have to measure the progress. That's why we start with a number so that we can move towards something. And don't just measure your progress, measure the activities and the actions that lead towards the results. We'll talk about that as well, but measure the actions that lead to the result. So, having a dream, great. We all need one. We all need to have a direction in which we're going. Having goals, well, now it becomes more intentional. It narrows the focus and it gets us to focus on the very specific things that are going to get us to the big picture. We spoke about the 5 circles, and we're going to set goals in each of these different circles. And then we're going to execute on it. It's great to have the goals, but if you really want them to happen, well, then you have to make things happen. You have to do stuff, the activities. And they don't have to be these monstrous activities. They just have to be consistent. And what we want to do is measure that progress. Okay. Adrian, this is sounding overwhelming. This is a whole lot to do. I don't know if I can think that far ahead. Fine, right? That's why we say, how about setting a 10-day goal? Now, I know you can do that. Everyone can do that. Just a 10-day goal in each of these different areas. Doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a small thing. Maybe it's to go for one 45-minute walk. Maybe it's to meditate for half an hour twice in the next 10 days. Maybe it's to ... you fill in the rest. But just for the next 10 days, can you pick 1 or 2 short-term goals and then go and execute on that? And once you've written those 10-day goals down, write a couple of 10-month goals down in each of those different areas: spiritual, family, financial, etc. Write down some 10-month goals. That's not that far away. Okay, I'm sure you all can think 10 months back as to where you were and what you were doing. 10 months out takes us to not even the end of the year. We're now sitting in February doing this. So I want to encourage you to go and do that, because the 10-day goals will get you started. Okay? Oh, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't want to do this. Just do it. 10 days. It'll get you going. What 10-month goals do is they keep you going. Okay? So what do you do with those 10-day goals? Well, I had a friend that played for South Africa, he played for the Proteas, Jacques Kallis. And I always used to ask him, because he used to get, for those who don't know cricket, don't worry, he used to get lots and lots of runs. And to reach a milestone in cricket is to get 100 runs while you're batting. And I often asked him what his mindset was. And he said, well, he focused on 10s. He'd go out and he'd bat, and he'd try and accumulate 10 runs. And after 10 runs, he would take his guard again, make his mark, walk away from the wicket, walk back, and then try and accumulate another 10. And then repeat, and then repeat, and after 10 times, he'd have 100 runs. If you don't believe me, go and watch some past innings and you'll see what I mean. But this is sort of the same thing, right? Set 10-day goal, things that you know you can achieve. And then when you get to the end of the 10 days, you set another 10 days. And then when you get to the end of that, you set another 10, and then another 10. And before you know it, you've got 100 runs. Or you've gotten a lot closer to your 10-month goals that you set for yourself. And bucket list goals, which we'll share in a moment, well, they give you a vision. They give you that big picture, that thing that you're after, or things, general things that you're after. It gives you direction, it gives you vision. So, the third one, bucket list goals. And as you should all know, there's been movies about it. But the questions you need to ask yourself when setting yourself these bucket list goals is one, where do I want to go? Where do I want to go? I want to go overseas. I want to go to New York. I want to visit the Taj Mahal. I want to. Where is it that you want to go? And write some of those down. And also, what do I want to do? What experiential things do I want to do? Skydive? Well, not me, but maybe you want to skydive. Maybe you want to drive a supercar around a racetrack. Maybe you want to swim with dolphins, swim with sharks. I don't know why anyone would want to do that. But what are these big ticket items that you want to do for yourself? Write those down. Remember, know how. You can't ask yourself the question how. You're not allowed to. Not yet, anyway. So what is it that you want to do? And then thirdly, what is it that you want to achieve for yourself? Maybe you want to learn to play the piano or the guitar. Maybe you want to take up a new hobby. Maybe you want to, even at whatever age you're at, do a marketing diploma, marketing degree, or it doesn't matter because it's different for each of you. But bucket list goals, you need to blow the lid off it and start thinking big, and do not ask yourself the question, how on earth am I going to get there? Because you won't write it down. We'll talk about how in just a sec. Okay? So 5 circle goals, those 5 areas. Go through the notes, rewind, replay it if you need to a few times, get used to it. It took me a while. 5 circle goals, then 10-day, 10-month goals, which will help you to write those 5 circle goals, and then these big ticket items, the bucket list goals. That's what we want to focus on. And here's the thing. Only 1% of the people that watch this video will take the time to write down their goals. 1 out of 100 of you, and I can see how many people watch this by the views, but only 1 out of 100 of you will actually write down these goals for yourself. And what's scary is that if you do, you have a 42% likelihood of achieving them by just writing them down. You haven't done anything yet. You've just taken the time to write them down, and then you put them in a drawer. 42% more likely. But only 1 in 100 of you are going to do it. Are you the 1 in the 100? I don't know. This is the part where now it's up to you. Because the theory is great, and the philosophy around it is great. But at the end of the day, only you can do this. You need to take the action, you need to take the action steps towards it. And the first of those is identifying what you want and then committing to paper. So we're ready to talk about how. Okay, you may now ask yourself, how do you achieve this? Well, I'm going to give you some tips as to how to go about that, right? The first thing is, and it is actually fairly simple. It's difficult to execute on, but the process is fairly simple, and it's this. 5 actions or action steps every day. big or small, but 5 things every day that you're going to do to move you towards one or more of your goals. Every day, 5 things. So for example, my Monday coming may look like this, and I would have put this in my diary or on my task list. Things like watch Amy's soccer match, or do a 30-minute workout, or send an invite for a bride to friends, or call 5 of my top clients, etc., etc. These things I write down. And why did I write them down? Because they relate to a goal that I would have set. So if I want to move towards a goal, I guess I've got to do something, right? So 5 things on that Monday that I'm going to do. They're going to move me closer. I may not achieve the goal all the day, but they're going to move me closer towards some of these goals that I've set for myself. And then I go out and I have my Monday. And my Monday is full of that whirlwind that I spoke about. There's people pulling me and you in all sorts of different directions. I need this and I need that. There's a complaint here and a phone call and a client and then you wake up at 5 o'clock and you haven't actually achieved much. You've been busy. You've been really, really busy, but maybe haven't moved the dial in terms of getting closer to your dream, getting closer to your goals. Well, writing these 5 things down mean that you can call your day a win if you've ticked all 5 items off. It means that other stuff will happen. It will happen, and you can't not call the client back. You can't not take the call about the complaint. You can't not, ... But you can call the day a win if you did these 5 things. If you did 100 things in a day, but you missed one of these, well, then you can't call the day a win. It was okay, but it's not a win. So what we need to focus on is what's important. What's important is achieving our goals and achieving our dreams. So what's important happens regardless of anything else. These 5 things need to be checked off. And then at the end of the day, that's what we'll do. Like, yes, no, forgot that, yes. And then what you do is you write down the 5 things for tomorrow. Now, if you're an overachiever, you can do it for further in the week. I like to just do it day by day. Write the 5 things that have to happen tomorrow. So Tuesday might look like this. Have a look what's at the top of the list. Yeah, the thing I forgot to do yesterday. So, and again, at the end of the day, did I achieve it? Yes. Those 5 things, great. It's a win. It got me a micro step closer to where I need to be. Remember those 5 circles? It helped me to change my personal from 5 to 6, my spiritual from 6 to 7, my business from 7 to 8, or maybe it didn't, but it got me a little bit further, just to 5.1, to 6.1, or to 7.1. And over a period of time, if I do this consistently is the key. If I do this consistently, I start moving towards my goals. In fact, I don't start moving towards them, I start achieving my goals. But the key is consistency, because at the end of that Tuesday, I'm writing down again the goals, or the actions that I need to take tomorrow to move me towards the goals that I'm trying to achieve. See, here's the thing. We usually overestimate what we think we can accomplish in 1 year, but we grossly underestimate what we can achieve in 10. Let me repeat that. We usually overestimate what we can achieve in 1 year, but we grossly underestimate what we can achieve in a decade. The way to achieve that dream or dreams, the way to achieve those goals are to break them down into micro bits. But before you can break them down into micro bits and then be intentional about the execution of it, you need to write them down. And you need to categorize them into those different areas of your life so we don't start splintering off and having failed relationships, failed personal lives, failed business or careers, or failed financial side. We want that whole environment, that whole ecosystem to start moving gradually up. And over a consistent period of time, things start changing in your life. I hope this was useful. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of books on setting of goals and dreams and how to go about it, and most of them are really good. I know that this worked for Vicky and I because I've seen this play out in my life, but if If not this, then you'll find something else out there that works for you. But the key is not watching the next video or reading the next book. The key is doing it, and only you can do that. Hope you have a great day. I'll catch you all soon.